and making sure that, we get exposure to each other's markets, we get exposure to each other's technologies, to capital, and see how we can, build a very cohesive and collaborative ecosystem, in that field going forward.
Welcome to the Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industries India Italy Business Council podcast series celebrating Women's History Month in association with RLVT. I'm your host for today, Saloni, President Advocate India Italy Business Council. And today we have with us Neelashi, Assistant Vice President at Invest India, the National Investment Promotion and Facilitation arm of the Government of India. Well, I have Nilashi's bio in front of me, and I have to say this that she is a powerhouse. She's a specialist with vast experience in corporate strategy, business advisory, economic diplomacy, and project implementation across sectors. Uh, Currently at Invest India, she spearheads the consumer goods vertical and drives investor outreach in Central and Southern Europe under the government's flagship Make in India initiative. But her impressive journey extends far beyond her current role. Previously, she has served as project lead at Niti Aayog, managing India's strategic economic partnerships with key players like Russia, China, and Australia. She's also a founding member of the Government of India's Women Entrepreneurship Platform at Niti Aayog. And for her work at Niti Aayog, she was chosen as a Raisina Young Fellow at the Asian Forum on Global Governance 2020 among 53 nationalities. Her passion extends beyond just the boardrooms. She co founded Whiter Slates, a talent mapping startup, and is also a published author and a contemporary poet. Nilashi, welcome to the podcast, and we are thrilled to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Saloni. It's a pleasure being here.
It's only because of highlighting the achievements of women like yourself that justifies the existence of this platform.
Yes.
So thank you again for being here. So Nilashi, before we dive into the interesting world of India-Europe relations, business relations, can you tell us more about Invest India and the services that it offers to foreign companies who are looking to invest in India? Well, I'm sure our Indian listeners and viewers would be knowing about Invest India, but the Italian listeners not so much. So,
No, absolutely, Saloni. So, as you mentioned, we are the National Investment Promotion and Facilitation arm of the Government of India. We operate under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, but we function essentially like a private corporate company. We try to be very efficient. We try to be, very democratic in how we function. The idea is that we are the extended arm of Make in India. We are the ones that execute Make in India on ground. So the idea is to attract the right kind of investors, tell them about the India opportunity, and handhold them in their entire business journey in India. So what we do is, one part of what we do is outreach and targeting, which is where, Italy is one of the focus countries that we also look at. So we want to actively engage with Italian businesses. We also have a dedicated program called the Access India Initiative, where we target Italian SMEs in particular, and we tell them what India is offering at this point and how we can help and handhold them as they enter the Indian market. The other part is that, once, let's say, a company has decided to invest in India, then we sit with them, we tell them a sectoral opportunity, a market opportunity analysis is done with them. We tell them, what is the best way or the most feasible way to kind of formulate their business strategy. So a lot of the advisory services that we provide on that front, and then even at the ground level, when they decide that, hey, I want to set up a plant, let's say in the state of Madhya Pradesh in central India, then we help them with the A to Z of filing for those applications, coordinating with different stakeholders at the state level, till that investment is actually grounded and commercial production starts from a particular plant. There is a dedicated relationship manager helping and hand-holding companies throughout their investment life cycle. And what is very interesting is that since we are a government entity, we provide these services completely free of cost. We do not distinguish between the size, scale, or country of origin of a particular company. And we work very, very closely with different partners and stakeholders who might have expertise in certain areas that are also required to help facilitate that investment. Be it law firms, be it, banks, be it chartered accountants at times. So we all work in a very, very collaborative fashion to actually help and ground that investment. Going forward, our focus will also be to support companies a little bit on their trade mandate. And at the same time, we would also be helping them improve their returns in India. So that is something very interesting that we are working towards. We have a new management in place, coming with a new set of vision. And the idea is that, now even ROI should be something that we should be focusing on. Not only should you invest in India, you should also be very, very profitable in India. So I
Right.
think that's going to be Invest India 2.0 for everyone going forward.
Well, thank you for answering that. That's quite interesting, the new thing that's coming up. Uh, well, India has become quite the global outlier, and the Indian story is one that's appealing to investors globally. Um, what are some of the key opportunities and challenges that you think Italian or European businesses, for that matter, should be looking towards when they're investing in India?
I think the first problem, especially I think in terms of Italy, I would say, has been a lack of awareness of the Indian market, to be very honest. And I think language barriers also play a very large role in making Italian companies actually understand what is happening on ground in India. I think initiatives like Access India that I talked about, and also partnerships on ground, physical presence, is something that I have seen, at least in my tenure at Invest India, to work wonders for Italian companies. Because like I mentioned, 80-90% of them would be SME, small and medium businesses. And
Yeah.
language, and because they are dealing in Europe, maybe they'll know a second, third language which is European, but they would not be that well versed with the way we speak English. So at least that is something that I have seen, especially for the smaller businesses, happen a lot, that you need a translator to be onboarded, or you need a mediator sometimes, who could be a local law firm, or it could be a local, it could also be our marketing assistant in our embassy who's gone and met them,
Mm-hmm.
and make them understand what's going on. But at the ground level, that is definitely one thing that I have observed tends to come in the way. But once you cross that barrier, I think there are so many synergies that India and Italy have, whether it is cultural synergies or it is business synergies. And once we get along, I think we develop an immediate trust with each other.
Right.
So that really helps, work together. I
Mm-hmm.
think culturally, we're all very family oriented. We all have big events, big
Yeah.
functions. And I think sometimes what happens is the softer elements get missed when you're working in an organization like this, or when you're representing the government, things become slightly formal. So I think
Right.
in my personal experience, since I'm here in a personal capacity, I would like to share, some of those aspects also that I have seen to work wonders in actually developing that sort of trust. And
Mm-hmm.
once you develop that trust, the confidence is not only in you as a stakeholder, but also in the country that you're representing, or the business case you're representing. And then, of course, we work in a very dedicated manner with companies. We assign one relationship manager who's your go-to person. So then I think things become more streamlined. Um, I think so. That would be, I think, the biggest thing,
Right.
that I have seen happen.
No, you've very beautifully put together what I also hold the same view on this is, and it's just the language barrier or a layer of the cultural difference that's there. But when you're beyond that, there's just so much to explore and so
Yes.
much to learn from each other. Um, also, which sectors do you see as having considerable investment activities in the Indo-Italian business corridor?
Absolutely. I think that's a great question. I think one sector is definitely renewable energy and
Yeah.
anything to do with energy transition. There are some amazing Italian companies that are doing great work, whether it is Enel or Snam in the oil and gas space, also trying to pivot to green hydrogen. So these are also companies that we have worked very closely with in the past, um, across different projects and across different business functions. So definitely, I see a lot of optimism also from Italy for India for these segments. And of course, for us, for India, renewable energy is something that we have ourselves set very, very ambitious targets for, so that there's a lot of complementarity in this particular segment for sure. I think the other thing is food processing again, especially food processing machinery that Italy brings with itself. Uh, there is a lot of expertise, again, lot of interest. In fact, here I would like to really commend the Italian ambassador and the whole team at the Embassy of Italy here,
Mm-hmm.
because in the last 4 years, they have taken so many proactive measures, steps, and initiatives to make sure that this is a sector where we see a lot of collaboration, whether it is G2G collaboration, whether it is G2B collaboration, or B2B collaboration. In fact, we have a mega food park in Gujarat right now, which is run in a purely PPP sort of a collaborative manner. The Italian government also brings in few experts there from time to time to upskill and train, the workers and laborers that are employed there. It's something that we have also taken up at an institutional level. There's actually an MOU that monitors, the activities in food processing between India and Italy,
I see.
as we speak. Another thing I feel is textiles. I think Italy's strength lies in textiles, as everyone, of course, knows textiles. And also, I would like to extend and mention fashion here, because I think those are two, very, very strong things that Italy kind of brings with itself. A lot of Italian FDI globally also goes in this particular segment. And I also see a lot of complementarity here, because textiles is, in fact, one of the sectors that our own Prime Minister has identified as a priority sector. It is again a field where the Indian government is working towards, upskilling, focusing on, certain other segments like technical textiles. We had a huge Bharat Tex that happened a few weeks back. Lots of activity, lots of interest. India also has its own strengths in this field. So again, a lot of complementarity here, whether it is in terms of machinery, whether it is in terms of design, whether it is in terms of, whatever expertise Italy brings for
Mm-hmm.
India. And of course, our own strengths that are inherent, because in India, you'll see a different textile, the minute you cross for 5 kilometers of radius. So, of course, that's again something that we see a lot of interest coming up in.
Okay.
Another field that I would like to mention is startups, actually, because last year, actually, when Prime Minister Meloni had come over to India and met with our Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister Modi, they in fact launched a startup bridge, which in fact our team had worked very closely on. The bridge actually acts as a medium
Mm-hmm.
for market access for startup ecosystems, not just startups, but also, the entire ecosystem, whether it is your incubation centers or technology centers, or, whatever best practices you can actually give to each other. And our Startup India team is actually working very closely on operationalizing that bridge and making sure that, we get exposure to each other's markets, we get exposure to each other's technologies, to capital, and see how we can, build a very cohesive and collaborative ecosystem, in that field
Mm-hmm.
going forward. So those would be, I think, the top four that I'd like to talk about right now.
Mm-hmm.